Elena Kindler is my next guest on the show. And I found Elena because I started doing some research on something called the Havening Technique, as in creating a safe haven, Havening. And this technique was developed by a neuroscientist to help us with anxiety and stress, but it helps put the body into a relaxation state and more delta brain waves. And it's a light touch. And Elena's going to describe it. But the reason I really liked Elena, I took a couple of her free workshops where she actually takes you through a havening meditation and experience with the havening touch. It's via Zoom, so you're doing your own touch. But I just really liked her. I like her approach. I like her style. I like the way she explains havening, so much so that I have signed up for her training. So I will become a certified havening tech practitioner myself. But I like her story. So you're going to hear more about her story and how she got into this. She's a former attorney and now is a havening practitioner and trainer, one of the few trainers in the United States. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. You'll learn about havening so you can use the technique for yourself when you're feeling anxious and stressed. But also, I just hope that you enjoy learning from Elena as much as I have. Elena, welcome to the show. I am so excited to talk to you about havening, about your life, about all kinds of things.
Great, me too. Thank you for having me.
So I want people to know about havening, and you do a beautiful job talking about havening, demonstrating havening. And so I want to talk about that. But when I went to your website, I learned about your life. And I think we have to, I don't know if you want to start there and talk about, kind of go to the time that you were an attorney working in New York and escaped Tower 1 on 9/11.
Right.
Maybe start there and then work our way to havening.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Right, I was in 9/11. I worked as a lawyer on the 54th floor of Tower 1. And I was pregnant, 7 months pregnant at the time. And I was lucky enough to survive because I had stopped to get money at the ATM in the lobby rather than going in right upstairs into the elevator. But needless to say, it was a pretty traumatic experience for me, especially because I was really concerned about my baby, right? Interestingly enough, the developer of the havening techniques is a medical doctor. His name is Dr. Ronald Ruden, and he was my husband's doctor. And so when Dr. Ruden wanted to do his first international havening training, he remembered that I had been in 9/11, and he thought this would be a really good person to work on because everybody knows 9/11. It's very, relatable to everybody. So he asked me to be a demo at his first havening training. That was in 2013, I think.
Yeah.
2013. So that was like 12 years later, after 2001, right? Like
Right.
later. And the weird thing was, I was like, okay, he wants to work on my 9/11 thing. That's fine. I went to therapy. It's like it's in the rear view. Like, I don't need to worry about that, anymore. Okay, sure. He wants me to be a demo. Fine. So I got there and I was really surprised when they asked me to sort of bring up my experience from 9/11. I was very surprised that like my hands were like a little shaky and like I felt like my breath was like a little shallow. And I was like, look at this. I'm still having all these like body sensations. It's like my body remembers, like the body keeps the score, Bessel van der Kolk.
Right.
And I was really surprised by that. And then they did a havening on me in front of this group of like 50 or 75 people. And it maybe was a half an hour, I don't know. And I had such a profound shift. I went from like really feeling pretty still a little shaken up and victimized and like, why did this happen to me kind of feeling to at the end of the havening, I was like, wow, I feel so strong. Like I feel very resilient. Like, look at me, what I went through and like, I'm still standing, and I felt like I had like a little bit of like kind of empowerment. And I was like, how did I do that? Like, what did it just do to me? You know, like, how could that have happened in such a short amount of time? So I thought to myself, well, God forbid anything else really terrible ever happens to me. I'm going to go to Havening first. Like, I'm going to remember this, you know? And unfortunately, I was going to work in 2016 and I was on a train that derailed and crashed.
Mhm.
And I suffered a mild traumatic brain injury and vestibular injuries and was diagnosed with PTSD. But the very first person I went to was Dr. Ruden. Literally,
Okay.
like 3 days later, I'm like, I'm a mess. I need help, you know, and Havening has just been both personally and professionally such an amazing tool. Like, it almost seems like, how could it work so simply, so easily, and so fast? Like, it almost seems like it can't be, but it is. Like, that was my experience. Like, it really has been life-changing for me.
Yeah. What an incredible way to be introduced to such a powerful technique. I mean, because I don't know if you haven't had that kind of experience, if it just seems like, oh, that's nice, that might be interesting. But to
Yeah,
have the experiences that you have had, I love had that you immediately went to Havening after
right. That
the
was the
training.
very first thing that I did, right, before I saw the neurologist and the PT and all the other, right. Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you decide you wanted to become a Havening practitioner? At
Yeah.
that point, you're still going to work as an attorney, I'm assuming.
Right. So I was working for FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. I was a securities enforcement attorney in New York, and
That
very
makes
different.
sense. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, very different from Havening. And I, you know, when you go through an experience where, you know, your life flashes before your eyes,
Mm.
like it did for me during, you know, it sort of helps you to really focus in on what you want your priorities to be for the rest of your life.
Right.
And I really just felt called I wanted to give back. I was so grateful. I had survived 2 near-death experiences, right? And I wanted to help people, you know, and I just saw how much Havening had just changed my life. And I wanted to pay it forward. So in 2018, I took the training. And a year later, I was certified and started my own havening practice. And that's called Metamorphosis Havening.
Right.
And then 2 years later, I realized, you know, that I felt that I could really be an excellent havening trainer as well. And there are not very many, you know, trainers in the world. I think there's a few in the US. So I became a havening trainer in 2021. And here I am doing trainings and working with clients and spreading the word about havening, because it really is quite amazing and very different from everything else that I've ever seen out there for, you know, for
Right.
trauma work, you know, trauma informed therapies,
Mhm.
as well as just general wellness and building resilience and you know, and positive states. So
Yeah. Well, I had so many things just flashed in my head. I'm going to try to do one at a time. I'm so
okay.
excited to come to your training in January because so I'm going to get trained and yeah, I can't wait to add that to my toolbox. But I've already been utilizing personally, utilizing some of the havening techniques, just
Yeah.
practicing myself. I have a sunrise ritual. I'm outside for sunrise pretty much no matter where I am or what the weather is. I go find the sunrise. And so I started adding some havening, mostly the
Right.
hands, right? Sometimes the shoulders, a little bit on the face. I like your heart. I don't know if it's yours, but when I went to one
I
of
think it is.
one of your trainings, I like the heart around my face part. And so
Yeah.
I just started adding it to my practice. And then it just feels different. I'm EMDR trained. I've done brain-based hypnotherapy training. I've utilized all of these personally and professionally, used
Yeah.
EFT tapping, and all
Hmm.
of those things are have a place, but havening just feels really special. And I feel like the name havening to create a safe haven for yourself. And any moment, no matter where you are, you can implement these light touch techniques that
Mhm.
help you return, it just helps your nervous system, but helps your brain. And so my understanding is that you're actually generating delta waves. Is that what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, I'd be happy to sort of do a
And
very,
it,
a short
yeah.
explanation of what's actually happening, right? So Havening uses touch, like you mentioned, and there are three main areas that we use the touch, right? One is on the face, like you mentioned, we sort of do a heart, crossing the shoulders and the upper arms and the palms of the hands.
Mhm.
And those areas were selected because there was research done in 2012 in an article in a publication called Traumatology Magazine by Mel Harper,
Oh, yeah.
naming the amygdala. And what he showed was that there are certain areas of the body where if you apply certain types of touch or vibration, you'll generate delta waves. And those are the areas that generate the most delta waves within the body using touch. So
Mhm.
that's why those are the three areas we use the touch. So what does that mean, right? What does it mean to be generating delta waves? Why is that important?
Yeah.
So delta waves are the slowest brain wave. And so when we experience something that's very stressful or traumatic, for example, our brain is going to be sending out a gamma wave frequency, which is like this very fast frequency of like, pay attention, be on alert, look out, that kind of frequency.
Right.
Compare that to the delta waves that are generated with Havening Touch. That's the slowest frequency of brain waves, and we typically produce them almost exclusively during slow wave deep sleep.
Mhm.
We really don't generate many delta waves during the day. So this is kind of like a biohack in a way, where
Mhm.
we're using the body's natural way of consolidating memories, building healing through these delta waves, and we're just applying it to specific memories and experiences so that we can create a new neural network for
Right.
those. So what happens typically is that those delta waves will then basically disentangle the experience from the emotion and the body sensation that comes along with it. And it's different from, regular sort of talk therapy because it's not using your brain to like cognitively reframe something. It's not an intellectual exercise. It
Right.
happens naturally because the delta waves are doing the work. And so it's the power of the delta waves that are really making the neurological changes and it's so easy and it's so gentle. And I think you were talking about like tap EMDR, and those are great techniques. I would never denigrate any kind of technique.
Sure.
Like you said, they have their place, but I think the distinction with Havening is that when you apply that Havening touch for, I'd say probably at least 7 or 8 minutes, it starts to feel into the body like a feeling of safety. Your body recognizes those delta waves as feeling safe. And so most people who are going to be generating delta waves with the Havening touch will experience just a felt sense, a visceral sense of feeling calmer, feeling more relaxed, at ease, safer.
Mhm.
And because of that, it really allows people to work on things that may be very difficult or traumatic that they may be too uncomfortable touching,
Mhm.
or going into without it.
Mhm.
Um, so that's sort of in a nutshell how it works.
I love that. That was a perfect nutshell. That really does help. And I think, delta waves, I always thought of delta waves as for our deep sleep where we're rejuvenating. So I've also been using the
Exactly.
havening technique personally to, I don't know the word, seal in some positive, right?
Exactly. I'm so glad that you brought that up because a lot of times people, clients will come to me because,
Yeah.
they want some trauma informed work with Havening and they've heard a lot of great things about it. But
Right.
it's really critical to really also know we're not just like taking down and depleting the negative stuff. We're adding in the positive stuff. And
Mhm.
Havening can do that both ways. You don't even need to have a negative experience to work on to use Havening. You can do it, like you said, to enhance something that already feels good for you.
Right.
Like if you love music, right? And you listen to music after dinner or something, you can just sit there and apply Havening Touch and build those positive feelings. Or let's say I don't know, you struggle with confidence or performance anxiety or something like that. You can pick the
Right.
sensation that you want to cultivate. So let's say you want to build confidence. Like, you can get in touch with a time when you really felt confident, feel that sensation, and then apply the Havening touch, and it will actually build those neural networks of confidence. So it's sort of like, I use the analogy like going to the gym. Like, you don't go to the gym one day and have like a giant bicep, right? It's like over time, you're adding in a little bit by little bit. If you do that with Havening too, you can really make incredible changes for the better, just in terms of your well-being and resilience. Yeah.
Right. And our brain is so beautiful in that way, that plasticity, but being able to make new neural pathways, this seems like such a simple way to help us. And it really reminds me like everything is frequency. And so it helps to take the charge out of things that were hurtful, traumatic, dangers signals to the body, while it also helps to enhance the the safety signals in the body. But
Absolutely.
also it's just occurred to me at some point early on, this just seems like when you're really upset, we kind of naturally will wring our hands, right? We'll just
Exactly.
put our head in our hands and go, oh, right? When you're really
Exactly. When you're really upset, most people are like, oh my God, and they're already touching their forehead, right?
right,
And think about evolutionarily, right?
right.
When a baby is born,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
What does a mother do to soothe the baby, right? The mother's doing like stroking, like, holding the baby like this. The baby's cheek, like nursing, is against the mother's breast, right? We, from eons,
right.
right, recognize that when our cheek is stroked, or when our like, when we're comforting a friend, or we hold them by the arm, or we hold hands with someone, right? It's not coincidental
Right.
that the touch is on these three areas, because biologically speaking, this is the area that our body recognizes as a place of comfort.
Right. And that I just love how naturally we are built. So the more I understand about quantum biology and the way that our body is designed, it's unbelievable how our body, and even when we have these traumatic experiences, like I really don't even think I can imagine. I was around obviously for 9/11, watching, horrified.
Yeah.
A lot of us I had a baby in 2002. After that, it made a big impact on a lot of us. Like the world's falling apart. We need to, I don't know why some of us were like, let's bring a baby into the world. You were already pregnant, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
wasn't, but
Yeah.
still, it was such an impactful time for so many people. But just to have these experiences, like we're going to have experiences in life that
Absolutely.
you could be anywhere and
Yeah.
anything can happen.
And people come for Havening for all different reasons. Like, a lot of people have developmental trauma where they had a very difficult,
Mhm.
childhood, whether there was physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or neglect. Um, it could be that you moved around a lot and you never got a chance to really make friends because, you moved every 2 years. There are a lot of things that happen in our childhood that really shape us in the way that we show up in the world, and the kind of behaviors and patterns that we may not even know about,
Right.
um, that can really limit us in the way that we want to feel in the world, the way we want to act in the world and show up.
Right.
And Havening is a really phenomenal tool with that. There are a lot of different people don't realize that there's actually 7 different Havening techniques within the umbrella of the Havening techniques. So, um, you don't have to be a 9/11 to get a benefit from Havening, right? It could just be, maybe you were bullied once, in 3rd grade, or maybe, you had an experience in school where you were laughed at, or maybe you never had the kind of relationship with your dad that you wanted, or your parents got divorced and you didn't see, there are so many
Mhm.
things that hurt us and wound us in
Right.
our life. And sometimes we just hold on to that. We kind of get stuck on
Oh,
that,
mhm,
So like,
mhm.
I could give you an example. I once worked with a woman who was in her 60s, and she had had something traumatic happen to her on Easter 3 years in a row when she was a kid. She was in a car accident. She had other things. And she's like, I'm a very religious person, and whenever Easter comes around, I always have this feeling that like it's tinged with these memories, and like I don't want that. And I'm like, okay. So we worked on some of the experiences that she had, and at the end of the session, she was going like this, and she was like moving her arm in this weird way, and I'm like, what are you doing there? And she's like, I've had pain in my shoulder since
Yeah,
I'm 8 years old,
right.
and it's gone. It's literally gone. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah. And, we've kept in touch, and it never came back. And it was the kind of thing where sometimes we just hold emotional memories, emotional
Yeah,
feelings in our body that can affect us, whether it's physical pain or it's just, a feeling of dread or difficulty relating to certain types of people or holding you back from, feeling confident at work, whatever it is.
mhm,
We don't need to carry that forward. It's
yeah,
really could be so simple to just, whether it's one session or just a handful of sessions,
mhm.
it can really make a huge impact. And for some people, it could be really transformational, which
And
is pretty fun to witness.
witnessed, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's really nothing better than somebody having a big shift that changes their life and they're transformed.
yeah.
Um,
And it can happen so quickly, which is the interesting thing. So,
mhm,
I've been in therapy many times in my life, and I love therapy. So this is not denigrating therapy in any way, but I could give you maybe an example of another woman who I worked with as a client,
mhm.
who she had been divorced 7 years before, and she was so still grieving so much the loss of the life that she had and the loss of who she felt was her soulmate, that she was starting to make her world so small that she wasn't really going out with friends so much. She wasn't performing at work, and things were getting difficult. And she just couldn't move on and like let go. And so she came to me and she's like, that's my ultimate goal. Like, I don't know, we'll see, if it's possible. And we had one session, just one session. And from the beginning of the session, where she felt like on a scale of 0 to 10, her distress was at a 10, at the end of the session, she literally was saying to me, I feel like I've already let it go. And like 3 weeks later, she's like, I
Yeah.
cannot even believe it. I'm literally dating.
Wow.
Yeah, literally dating. And, she was like going out with her friends again. And it was like such a transformation so quickly, right?
Right.
But sometimes it's like that neural network
Right.
it's like a superhighway,
Yeah,
right? And
it
that's
is.
all your brain knows. And
Mhm.
so when you can just break that neural chain and it doesn't control you anymore, it presents so many other possibilities for people like that they didn't really feel were actual possibilities for them before, which
Right.
is such a cool thing.
It really is. I mean, I think it's the point of why we're all here too, is to not be stuck, to actually, our body's always working for us, I believe. It
Yeah.
just gets stuck. And I think, in the fascia, if we just looked at the fascia and these neural networks, this quantum communication that's going all over the body all the time, it's
Absolutely.
actually trying to keep us safe and help us. It just has these stuck places. So
Yeah.
to have a technique that can move that quickly is just
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I mean, we all need those survival mechanisms, right?
Right.
Like the
Right.
fight, freeze, because something is an emergency, you want to be able to mobilize like that.
Right.
But just like in PTSD, sometimes the timekeeper part of your brain doesn't always recognize that
Right.
that was the past
That's done.
and it's not now. Exactly. And so havening, can sort of work with the fact that the brain doesn't know what's imagined versus what's real sometimes, or what happened in the past versus what you want to happen in the future. So it's not like havening creates a new future for you or anything like that, of course, obviously. But it's amazing how just getting unstuck from that and seeing other possibilities can really change somebody's life, and quickly,
I really can't think of anything better. And so for you, you're so good at it. I mean, I've been to your deep calm free webinars that you do. So I want people to, I know you're not going to have some over the holidays for a time, but when people start to learn about this and wrap their head around it, and then they can come when you start having those again, right?
Yeah, in 2024, I'll be running 2 free programs,
Okay.
which will be listed on my website, which is www.metamorphosishavening.com.
Right.
And so one is, they're free. It's my way of giving back. It's my way of saying thank you, and also to exposing people who really may not be able to afford it, or just want to dip their toe in and see what it's all about, giving them a chance to see what it is.
Yep.
So I run 2 different kinds of events. One is the Deep Calm experiential workshops, and I run those once a month for like an hour. And that's a chance where you'll actually be able to feel what it's like to receive havening. It can be done on Zoom, so everyone will be able to do their own touch. And I'll guide them through a series. And every month there's a different theme. It might be like cultivating gratitude, or seeing your own imperfections in a totally different light, or new beginnings, or something like that. Every month is a different theme.
Yep.
And then I also run free intro classes. So if you really wanted to understand in more detail the neuroscience behind havening, if you wanted to see the clinical research studies that have been published about havening and its effectiveness, to understand what conditions it can work with and help with, and to also see a demonstration of me using it with somebody right in the moment, so you can see it with your own eyes in action, and you can see the difference that shows up on somebody's face in just 15 or 20 minutes. That's an introductory class that I also offer from time to time, usually like maybe 3 or 4 a year. And you can check that out on my website as well. And those are free.
That's so nice of you to do that. I mean, I really enjoyed the free deep calm sessions. And so you really already, were you a natural at that? I mean, your voice is very calming. You have a way of creating,
I'm
like a
blushing.
safe, I know, sorry, but it's true. So I
Thank
just
you.
wondered if that was natural for you, or if it took you some time. I just didn't know if your lawyering was similar, if you were that
Yeah,
kind of calm
it's
lawyer.
funny. I was not a calm lawyer. I was an anxious lawyer. I think, I've been doing havening on myself, like they call it self-havening, right? Doing havening for several years now, and it's really helped me to sort of change the way that I show up in the world. It's like I am calmer, heart-centered than head-focused, in the way that I am now, because that's what I wanted to bring forth for myself. And so, we were talking about like how you use it in the morning with your sunrises. I work on things too, and sometimes just if something triggers me, I'll just do 5 or 10 minutes worth of havening and remove it, like take it away. And like you do that little by little over time, and it really starts to really add up. You could really change how you feel in a pretty profound way. So thank you for the nice compliments. I appreciate it. It comes from my heart. What can I say? I feel very passionate about havening, and very passionate about giving people the tools within their own hands
Yeah.
to empower themselves, to help themselves heal. I don't see it as like I'm healing somebody. I see it as like I'm giving them the tools, and I'm giving them the vehicle where like I can help them. I just hold the safe ground.
Yes.
And let them unfold and transform. And so I don't know. I'm glad it comes across as a nice, safe, and calm experience.
I just think it's interesting how people fall into stuff, and when I just always find that very curious, because it seems like you were made to do this work.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like the universe had to push, just a couple of traumatic experiences to show you that this is the work we need you to do in the world. I don't know.
It's very interesting that you say this, and for some people, this will be way out in the woo.
Yeah.
But actually, after the train crash, I suffered a lot with anxiety, and I was put on medication, and I was trying to do everything I could to work with the PTSD that I had. And one of the things that was suggested was meditation. So I started a meditation practice, and when I was really trying to decide, what do I want to do with my career now? Do I want to go back to the law? Do I want to do something different? And I was really open to it. And I was meditating one day, and literally I heard, as if someone were sitting next to me,
Uh-huh.
I heard the word, like, and I jumped, I was like, and there was nobody there. Of course, it was just
Right.
some sort of insight that maybe came from within or from a higher power, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And when I thought about it, I was like, it literally checked all the boxes of what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for my heart. I wanted to help people. I wanted to use something that was really simple that people could use on their own. It was like, check, 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 check. Oh yeah, great. And that's when I decided to take the Havening training. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that story. I love that when things just click but that was a whisper. Elena, that was a whisper. And I think if we're to get still and quiet enough, when you experience anxiety and chronic anxiety or PTSD, or just you're so chronically stressed, I think we're getting messages all the time. It just can be subtle or it's a whisper. So if you're
Yeah.
yeah,
I
miss
100%
it.
agree. I think that there are messages all the time, and we're so busy, or we're running so fast, or like you said, we're sort of distracted with our own stuff. Um, it can be very hard to hear it. And that's one of the nicest things I think about the deep comment that I like to do, I hope is
Mhm.
to give people the chance to slow down a bit and
Mhm.
just be more in touch with themselves. We put so much pressure on ourselves. We run so fast. We have, 12 things, or 20 things or 200 things on our to-do list every day, and it's
Yeah.
it's very hard it's very easy to be depleted.
It
And,
is.
and we all need these self-care tools, right? We can't, it's not really, I don't think it's ideal to say, okay, I need to book a massage or an acupuncture appointment or a talk therapy session or whatever. It's great. And I do those things, but it's so nice to know that I can do this myself and I can
Yep.
do it exactly when I need it. And it's so simple that anyone can do that. I've worked with kids, I've worked with people who are afraid of dying, who want to just envision a lot of comfort in their last years where they don't suffer pain and they're not alone. There are so many different applications for havening. And it's something that you can do once you understand how it works and know how to do it, you can do it on your own. And that's so empowering for people.
Beautiful. Yeah, a couple things I just want to make sure we mention your
Sure.
art because I loved seeing your art. Are you still
Making art.
making art? Do you still consider yourself an artist? How's that?
It's hard for me to call myself an artist. I started making art. Well, I loved art when I was a kid. I made art a ton as a kid. And then, like a lot of things, when you kind of get into the real world and you have a job and you have a family, it sort of falls by the wayside.
Mhm.
But one of the things that was recommended to me after the train crash, because I couldn't read, by the way, all the words were bouncing. And I had noise sensitivity, and there were so many things I couldn't do. And my psychologist at the time suggested, why don't you do art, and it can be a good creative outlet for you, and it can be something beautiful. And I found myself, instead of doing this beautiful art, it was like art therapy. I was everything was crashing, everything was dark and bleh, and it was coming out through my art. And
Uh-huh.
so after about a couple of months of doing that, I had an art show called Derailed.
Mhm.
Um, yep, in Nyack, New York. And so that art is on my website. And so I think what people have said to me is that they can really resonate with the feelings of it, even though it was regarding a train crash, that
Mhm.
they felt like they could feel the feelings of it. So if that makes me an artist, I'll take it. Um, but now I do a lot more sort of spiritual art and sort of art that's blossoming and unfolding, because I feel like that's that's who I am now. And actually, I don't know if you could see, I have behind me,
Yeah.
I have this butterfly.
Mhm.
That's the symbol for metamorphosis, Havening. It's like that idea of the butterfly right in the cocoon. And
Mhm.
actually, what this says is, and just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly.
Right. Yeah, I got some goosebumps on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I learned that the caterpillar actually liquefies inside the cocoon is when I was like, well, no wonder this metamorphosis stuff is so painful. You're like liquefying. And if you don't have a container and you're trying to become the butterfly, I think that is when it's really messy and it can't happen. And so I like the idea of having tools like havening to help create that safe haven, that cocoon, so you can actually experience metamorphosis.
Yeah. I, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I did it. That's why I named my company that. Right, I get it.
That's why I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is nourishing to your mind, body, soul these days? Other than havening, obviously.
Yeah. Havening is definitely a part of it. I do Tai Chi, which is sort of similar to Tai Chi, but was developed by Justin Stone. I love doing that. It's like a very slow process of movement and balance with like different movements. I love doing that. I go for acupuncture,
Mhm.
and that I always have found has been really wonderful for me. And I have a daily meditation practice still in through Blue Throat Yoga, Nilakanta meditation,
Oh,
and I do that. It's supposed to be twice a day. Sometimes I really don't get to twice a day, but yeah, a daily basis. And I find that all of these tools together are very grounding.
yeah.
And the thing that I'm just recently been starting in this past year have been two amazing things. One is The Realization Process by Judith Blackstone. And
Mhm.
that's sort of a way to build like the feeling of embodiment and
Yeah.
grounding within
Uh,
yourself.
yeah.
And I just love that. She's absolutely brilliant. And I've also been working with the School of Unusual Life Learning, acronym SOUL, which
Nice.
has been super transformational for me. It's given me sort of a way to look at life and consciousness in a way that I've never done before. And I feel like I've really developed sort of kind of awareness that has really helped me and grounded me in my life. So that's the School of Unusual Learning with Jean Denny. Um, yeah,
Love that. Yeah.
yeah. I'm training now to be a whole life doula. Which is so
Okay. Oh,
exciting.
nice.
Yeah, it's a program that's like accredited by the U.S. Association of Body Psychotherapy. So
Oh,
it's a really cool program.
okay.
Everyone should check it out.
I mean, I was like, let me get through your training, get through the havening training before I immediately start figuring that piece out. Yeah. Sounds
You
like,
sound like it sounds like you're somebody like me. I'm a seeker. I always love to learn
oh,
new
yeah.
things, new tools, especially for healing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. And I do think that those times in our life, whether it's a traumatic experience or a great loss or whatever it is, where we're given an opportunity to look at our lives and say, is this how you wanted this to go? Like, is this where
exactly,
we want to make some changes here?
exactly.
So yeah, I'm a seeker too. Always, I think always will be. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's probably why we resonate together then.
I know we're kind of run out of time and I have to ask about the kids. I,
Okay.
you have one child, I'm guessing,
Yeah,
two.
I have two. I have two.
Okay.
So my son who was in utero during 9/11, Noah, he's getting a degree in physical therapy right now.
Oh,
And
nice.
my younger son, Joshua, is studying philosophy. So they're
Two
also
boys. I have two boys
boys.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
They'll
have
always be boys, even though they're really kind of on the cusp of adulthood or are in adulthood right now. To me, they're always going to be my boys.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 21 and 18. So yeah, of course. So
Yeah.
did they at some point did they start the havening? Or have you taught that to them or they roll their eyes at you like mine do?
funny. So my older son, he loves touch. So he will sit and ask for Havening whenever we are together and we get the opportunity, because it's like I'll be going like, well, with him I don't do with clients in their hair, but do it, and he's just like
That's it.
loves it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my other son was never really that into it, but actually this past year he was struggling with something like emotionally and said, "Do you think like you could do a Havening with me?" And I was like, "You betcha," so that was pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I love it when it comes back around. They're like, hey,
Okay.
that thing, that weird thing that you have been doing
Yeah.
most of my life. Yeah.
Well, it's very funny because when I started it and I needed, to build, like while I was getting my certification and I needed to build that, I worked on a lot of their friends because it was the year that they were taking the SATs and the ACT, and they were so stressed out about the importance of this exam and which college are they going to go to, and it like was going to affect their whole life. And that's when I started working on test anxiety. That's where it began with teenagers.
Ah, that makes perfect sense. What a great tool. I just said that to somebody before a test, like, of all teachers. I mean, just because teaching is such a stressful job. So to have this as a tool that's self-havening as a teacher, and then any children that wanted to do that before a test, like,
And in fact, the Havening organization has partnered up with the Choose Love movement, which is bringing in emotional regulation tools into schools. And I think that they've now added Havening to their protocol, and I think it's in over 2,000 schools in the US now.
amazing.
It's getting out there. It's just getting out there through podcasts like yours, and in other ways. It's around the world. There are Havening practitioners like literally around the world, from like Australia, New Zealand, Europe, South America. It's everywhere now. It's great.
Yeah. I can't
Yeah.
believe had never heard of it. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm
Well,
just
it's fairly
grateful.
new. It's about 10 years old. We just celebrated the 10-year anniversary of Havening. And tools like EMDR or tapping, those are like 40 years old. So they have a little bit of a head start as far as like name recognition and all that. But Havening's getting out there. So
It
that's
is.
cool.
It
Yeah.
is. We're going to help push it out there. So,
Yeah. Really. Great.
yeah. So I've loved having time to talk to you. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, me too. Thank you.
And I'm really excited to train with you. So,
Me too. I can't wait. I love sharing Havening. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, just reach out to me anytime.
yes, you're very, very open and warm about that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.